The Alexander Cell Saga, Chapter 5b, Nigeria, the first time round. This is me, and do not be obedient. We were establishing something of a reputation for achieving astounding results, and I had completed the status report, which was examined by the head of engineering. I had used my imagination during the writing of the report and made some rather outrageous predictions. I had looked at the records and visualised the effect of all the electrical pressures resulting from the voltage measurements. I applied these pressures to a full drawing of the complete region and pinpointed 6 locations where I thought the major pipelines would leak. I also looked at the history and specifications of the pipelines and estimated the order in which the leaks would occur. I stuck my neck out rather and concluded the report that these leaks would occur in this order during the next few months if remedial action was not taken immediately. When I had arrived, all the records were hidden in filing cabinets, and the staff did not seem to be working towards any particular goal. While I was compiling the status report, I drew graphs of the latest voltage readings and displayed these on the walls of the office using coloured mapping pins and black cotton to connect the values. I used black pins to mark the areas that were within the criteria and red pins for those that were unprotected. This looked very pretty and gave the impression that I knew what I was doing. When I submitted the report, I added 6 huge red pins at the locations that the configuration had indicated the leaks were most imminent. Within a few weeks of completing this chart, the head of engineering came into the office and started looking at them with interest. I started to explain them to him, and he said that he understood as he had seen them in my absence, but on this occasion was checking to see if the leak that had just been reported to him was on one of the locations in my report. He noted that it was on the first pipeline that I had named, but wanted to check the exact location that I'd given. The leak report which he was carrying showed that it had occurred within 100 metres of the big red pin on my wall chart. He made a note of the next predicted leak site on my charts. Within a couple of weeks he came back into my office in the company of the operations management holding another leak report. They confirmed that the location of the leak was at the second large red pin on my charts, and the operation manager seemed to notice the presence of my organisation for the first time. He's a Dutchman, but he can't help that. And I grew to understand that the Dutch staff, for the competent engineers that they are. The head of engineering asked if there was anything I could suggest to stop the leaks, and I was able to put several proposals for upgrading the cathodic protection. We had several meetings resulting in a programme of activities which he approved. A couple of weeks later, the district manager East, alias God himself, alias Bert Och, a huge German, burst into my office, followed by the head of engineering, who was holding a third leak report. He said, "Show me where this is," and waved the leak report snatched from Richmond Johnson's hand. I looked at the map and related the position of the wall chart. It was on the third large pin. Bert Och said, "I think you're doing this." He then grinned and asked what I thought the next leak would be. I pointed to the fourth large pin, which was in the Bonnie Creek on the trunk line, which delivered all the oil from 16 oil fields to Bonnie Terminal. He asked me if it was possible to prevent the leak and authorised me to do whatever I could to this end. About a week later, I was on a helicopter returning from Bonnie Terminal, where I had been looking at the cathodic protection setup. I asked the pilot to fly over the pipeline crossing where we had spotted an oil slick which looked as if it had come from a leak. We reported this by radio to Port Harcourt, where we were met by Bert Och and Richmond Johnson. We flew back to Bonnie Creek and confirmed that it looked as if the pipeline leak rather than a spillage from a ship. After a couple of days, Richmond Johnson came into my office and said that they were having great difficulties in pinpointing the actual leak, as the pipeline was under thick mud and the estuary waters at this location were more like soup. The divers reported only 6 inches of visibility close to the surface, and this was completely dark at the riverbed. He asked if there was any way that I could help locate the leak site using my survey techniques. A team of divers were on a barge anchored near the centre of the creek, well clear of the pipeline, and I joined a survey vessel where I set up 2 electrodes spaced 50 metres apart, which we towed slowly, allowing them to sink 2, 3 or 4 metres below the surface. I had set the cathodic protection output to maximum for this section of pipeline by disconnecting all the other pipelines from the system. This caused enough electrical current to flow to the leak to cause a potential profile which could be detected by voltmeter placed between the conductors that were towing the 2 electrodes. To my surprise, I could watch the rise and fall of the voltages on the meters and was able to lay a ring of marker buoys around the leak. We then made several passes diagonally across this ring and managed to drop a marker where I felt the leak must be. We had to maintain radio silence during this operation, as the transmission caused the needle of the meter to jump around like a mad thing. The divers had enough of swimming around in nil visibility, so Arthur Jones, the team leader, and Malcolm Frost, the area diving manager, got kitted out and dived down following the buoy rope. They reappeared to say that the weight at the end of the rope was resting on the leak, which was at a place where in the pipeline where something in the past must have caused physical damage to the concrete cladding. All sorts of plans were made to repair the pipeline, and a huge steel box was made to clamp over the leak site, and it was proposed to house the divers while they carried out the repair. The idea of repair was eventually abandoned, and the pipeline closed down for 6 months while a new crossing section was constructed. It must have cost a fortune, as the 16 oil fields had no other outlet, and Bonnie Creek was over a mile wide at this location. We heard some years later